Payday. So first off, we're going to go and see what's the latest headlines are. Okay. Stop with the false choices, VP Kamala Harris. Vice President Kamala Harris issued a fiery rebuke to Republicans who say gun reforms being proposed by the White House would mean getting rid of the Second Amendment. That's not what we're talking about, she says. What is going on at the southern border? The recent spike in unaccompanied migrant children at the border has drawn scrutiny from across the political spectrum. Oh my goodness. Should Biden stick to Trump's pledge to leave Afghanistan? Jill Biden urges schools to reopen, but teachers' union resistance continues. Asian adoptees raised in the U.S. describe the challenges of forging a racial identity. U.S. gun control. Biden calls for a ban on assault weapons. Mac Beggs, a transgender wrestler who rose to prominence for competing against women. It took a toll on me. Beauty store owner left beaten and needing surgery after an attack in Texas. Justice lawyer says it was okay to border screen Huawei exec. Myanmar coup, a 7-year-old shot as she ran into her father's arms. That's sad. A 7-year-old girl has been shot dead in Myanmar, becoming the youngest known victim in the crackdown following last month's military coup. Allies of Kremlin critic Navalny raise alarm over his health after lawyers denied prison access. The jury is set for the former cop's trial in George Floyd's death. A jury has been seated in the trial of a former Minneapolis police officer in George Floyd's death, with opening statements scheduled for Monday. Justice lawyer urges judge to reject Huawei lawyer narrative. Ethiopian prime minister publicly acknowledges possible war crimes for the very first time. Mystery drones hovered over Navy destroyers off California. Pope orders 10% pay cuts for cardinals as Vatican braces for financial deficit. High Court mulls police power to enter homes without warrant. The Supreme Court on Wednesday weighed when police can enter homes without a warrant with the justices making up scenarios involving elderly neighbors, a cat in a tree, a massless social gathering, and even a Van Gogh painting to help them resolve the case. Myanmar military frees hundreds of detained protesters. Child victim was buried. Ex-Operation Warp Speed chief fired from private firm over sexual harassment allegation. Diverse jury raises activist hope for ex-cop's trial. Russia-China push for UN Security Council summit, lash out at West. UK government buildings to fly the Union flag every day. At least 15 found dead after Bangladesh Rohingya camp blaze. Canada sanctions 9 Russian officials, Kremlin vows response. Lowe and Boebert ridiculed for claims no gun laws could have stopped Colorado shooter. Freddie Mercury, the seal death, being investigated by police as they hunt for owner of a dog. The death of an seal named after Freddie Mercury in a dog attack near the River Thames is now being investigated by police as they hunt for the owner of the dog. Dubai deputy ruler, famed horseman Sheikh Hamdan, dies at 75. U.S. Homeland Security studying how to track travel of suspected domestic extremists. Nicola Sturgeon refuses to say when she will meet pledge on closing education attainment gap. U.S. backs Philippines in standoff over South China Sea reef. Top Senate Republican blasts sweeping U.S. election reform bill as power grab. It's an atrocity, McConnell slams Democrats' election reform bill. Ugh, he's such a scumbag. You don't have to listen to him because he is the Grim Reaper. Senator Tammy Duckworth drops threat to vote against white Biden nominees after AAPI representation assurances. Lakota activists Mount Rushmore key to move to regain land. France summons Chinese envoy over unacceptable insults. White House, North Korea conducted a short-range missile test. Tugs work to free giant container ship stranded in Suez Canal. Man attacks Asian American woman on New York subway as other passengers look on. Taxpayer-backed S&P deal, which promised 2,000 jobs, delivers fewer than 50. Philippine troops kill 16 Muslim militants in clashes. California bill aims to enforce gun microstamps law. Hong Kong activist charged with foreign collusion under national security law. Missing woman found naked inside a Florida storm drain. How she got there is bizarre. My goodness, the things that people do in Florida. Syrian-born alleged Boulder shooter shows anyone can assimilate into American culture, says Michael Moore. Joe Biden delegates migrant border crisis to Kamala Harris, saying, "I give you a tough job." Philippine Supreme Court slams killings of lawyers and judges. Merkel's party's in a free fall as Greens gain. Mind-boggling. Warriors coach Steve Kerr calls out Ted Cruz over gun control comments. A barista hid a coworker under bins and likely saved her life in the Boulder shooting. Australian police find nothing criminal in Vatican fund transfers. China-Russia officials meet in show of unity against the EU and the US. Transgender women facing homosexuality charges in Cameroon denied bail. Women in their 40s and 50s who survive COVID more likely to suffer persistent problems. Maskless woman hurls inward at black cashier after being refused service in a New York market. What is with these Karens? My God. Easy to vote, hard to cheat. Kentucky threads needle on voter access. Mystery remains about Sputnik vaccine seized in Mexico. Here is some great news. Virginia governor signs legislation banning the death penalty. Thank you, Virginia Governor Ralph Northam. He signed legislation on Wednesday abolishing the state's death penalty, following through on his promise to outlaw capital punishment. Oh, thank you, Governor Northam. Yes, Virginia becomes the first Southern state to abolish the death penalty. This is great news. China is leaving a huge economic void in Latin America. The U.S. should step in and fill it. I don't know about that. Georgia Republicans go to bat for electric vehicles. Conservationists sue to save spotted owl logging protections. Drone gets up close to erupting volcano crater. Wow, beautiful. You have to see this. This is gorgeous. Okay, sorry about that. Looks like I couldn't do it. Okay, I'll try to do it later. Well, let's see. Do this. We'll do this. Let's see. Still trying to figure this stuff out, guys. I apologize. So here it is. There's no audio, but look at that drone getting up close. The video captured on Tuesday, March 23rd, showed lava pouring from the crater down the side of the volcano and into a lava field. The drone operator braved the snow and biked 7 kilometers to the volcano, which is not accessible by road. The trip through the hilly terrain took approximately 1.5 hours. Pretty cool. So there you can see it right there. There it is. There it is right there. Beautiful. Okay, stop. All right, now we're going to get into equal pay. You wouldn't believe it, but women still don't have equal pay. So first, we're going to do a little history of the Equal Pay Act of 1963. All right. The Equal Pay Act of 1963. The Equal Pay Act, signed into law by President John F. Kennedy on June 10, 1963, was one of the first federal anti-discrimination laws that addressed wage differences based on gender. The act made it illegal to pay men and women working in the same place different salaries for similar work. During the first decades of the 20th century, women made up less than 24% of the U.S. workforce. During World War II, however, labor shortages brought large numbers of women into the workplace, and by 1945, women made up 37% of the civilian workforce. Because women had traditionally earned less than men for doing similar work, male workers feared that this growing source of cheap labor would replace them or lower their wages. As men began to join the military and women began to take over their civilian jobs, unions started to advocate for equal pay. They felt that this would prevent employers from undercutting future wages for men. In addition, the National War Labor Board endorsed the idea of equal pay for equal work. They issued a general order supporting equal pay for men and women for work that was of comparable quality and quantity. Do the job he left behind. Apply U.S. Employment Service, a World War II employment poster. Seeking a legal path forward. In 1945, Congress introduced the Women's Equal Pay Act, which contained the phrase comparable work. This meant equal pay for different jobs in the same workplace. Pay was to be determined by comparing the worth and or difficulty of the jobs. The phrase was the subject of heated debate and the bill failed to pass. After the war, federal and civilian policies allowed employers to replace female workers with males. Many companies would only hire men, even if they had hired women during the war. Those that had hired women reclassified their jobs and lowered their pay. Newspapers published separate job listings for men and women, and some help-wanted ads ran identical jobs, but with different pay scales for men and women. The percentage of women working outside the home dropped to less than 28% of the total workforce. Throughout the 1950s, several bills seeking equal pay for women were introduced in Congress, but all failed to move forward. By 1960, there were approximately 25 million women working outside the home. While women again accounted for 37% of the total workforce, they only earned an average of 59 cents on the dollar compared to men. The Equal Pay Act is born. Over here is a picture Esther Peterson writing at a meeting of the President's Commission on the Status of Women, 1962. In 1961, labor activist Esther Peterson was appointed to head the Women's Bureau in the Department of Labor, which was responsible for administering gender issue labor laws. At her urging, President Kennedy established the Presidential Commission on the Status of Women to develop recommendations for achieving equality. She gathered data, built coalitions, and won over opponents in a successful campaign to bring an Equal Pay Act before Congress. In February of 1963, Esther Peterson submitted a draft bill of an Equal Pay Act to Congress on behalf of the Kennedy administration. The draft bill called for equal pay for comparable work. This phrase has proven to be problematic in the past, and after much discussion was eventually changed to the less controversial equal work, which meant jobs requiring equal skill, effort, and responsibility and which are performed under similar working conditions. With this change, supporters of the legislation were able to move the bill forward. Segments of the business community opposed the Equal Pay Act. These included the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the National Retail Merchants Association, both of whom argued that women were more expensive to employ than men. This was supposedly due to added costs associated with female workers. Both organizations claimed that these costs were caused by higher rates of absenteeism and turnover among female workers and by state laws requiring special benefits such as rest periods, a longer time for meals, and separate toilets. In addition, they maintained that the issue of equal pay was already being addressed in 21 states and that federal legislation was unnecessary, impossible to enforce, and would create more problems than it would solve. To calm business community's fears, Congress decided to make the Equal Pay Act into the already existing Fair Labor Standards Act. These standards labor, such as basic minimum wage and overtime pay, and affected most private and public employment. In addition, the FLSA provided established procedures for investigating violations of the standards and clearly defined penalties. With these changes, the Equal Pay Act passed the House and Senate and was signed into law on June 10th, 1963. During the signing ceremony, President Kennedy acknowledged the importance of a woman's earning power and the need for provisions that would allow her to reach her full earning potential, such as better daycare services and tax deductions to cover the cost of such services. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 was, he acknowledged, only a first step, and much remains to be done to achieve full equality of economic opportunity. The following year, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, excuse me, further strengthened laws for gender equality by making it illegal to discriminate not only on the basis of race, religion, and national origin, but also on the basis of sex. Experience Your America. This was from the National Park Service. Okay. So now we can take that one off. Now we can stop that one. So let's do this. Yes. All right. I'm still getting used to this. All right. And here we have Women's Equal Pay Day. Today is Equal Pay Day. Yeah. All women, all U.S. women compared to all U.S. men, March 24th, 2021. As of today, we only make 82 cents for every dollar that a man makes. $0.82. That's how much women in the U.S. who work full-time year-round are paid for every dollar paid to men. This year, we're raising awareness around this pay gap with our theme, March Madness, the Pay. Women's Equal Pay Day marks the day into the year on what it takes for women on average to earn what men did in 2020. That's 15 months. Or if you look at a typical 9-to-5 workday, women start working for free at 2:40 p.m. Follow along social media channels for week-long tournament and week of action from March 17th to the 24th as equal pay players take on one rival at a time. Each day will feature an exclusive matchup between equal pay and an equal pay barrier, culminating in the final matchup on Equal Pay Day, March 24th. So they got a cool little game for you to play. All right, let's look at the overview to 2021. is Equal Pay Day. No, it's this one. Why is it that I should be paid less than my male counterpart when I do the same work as anyone else? I shouldn't get paid less. Women should get paid equally to men. This is a no-brainer. If you think that women deserve to be paid less, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I'm super sorry. I don't know what to tell you. That then you seriously have some problems. All right, let's move on. Equal pay spurs. Okay. So as you can see, we're still suffering under.
Moving on. Our main story tonight concerns, I'm sorry to say, Tucker Carlson, a man who gives Tuckers an even worse name than they already have.
Okay, so as you can see, we're still suffering under a pay wage gap.
So as you can see, we're still suffering under.
Oy, sorry about that. I was checking to see if the audio was working. I don't know if it was or not. Can somebody please tell me in the chat if my audio was working for that? All right, moving on. We're still talking about the Equal Pay Day. And the next article is coming from Forbes.com. Okay. So Twitter, Mattel, and Adobe sign equal pay pledge. This is from Kim Elliser, senior contributor of Careers. California women lose a combined total of $78.6 billion each year because of the gender pay gap. And California's first partner, Jennifer Seibel Newsom, and the California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls are committed to reducing that figure. Today, Equal Pay Day, they made some significant progress announcing that 8 new companies, including Adobe, Mattel, Nextdoor, and Twitter, have signed on to their California Equal Pay Pledge. California has the 4th smallest pay gap in the country, trailing only Vermont, Hawaii, and Maryland. Still, women in the state still only earn 88 cents for every dollar a man earns, and some groups earn far less. Black women only earn 62 cents, Latino women 55 cents, and Native American women only 50 cents for every dollar earned by a man in California. To address this issue in 2019, Newsom and the CCSW launched the Equal Pay Pledge as part of the hashtag Equal Pay California initiative to reduce the pay gap. The companies which join the pledge commit to conducting an annual company-wide gender pay analysis, reviewing their hiring promotion processes and procedures to reduce bias and structural barriers, and promoting best practices that will close the pay gap. Newsom already had some big names like Apple, Intel, and Airbnb pledging, and today announced more companies have joined the list. In total, 65 companies have pledged to follow the guidelines to promote equal pay within their organizations. Efforts to help ensure pay are particularly timely, given there's substantial evidence that the pandemic may have exacerbated gender inequities. Many low-wage jobs held by women were eliminated in the last year, and some working moms struggled to work and simultaneously care for children when schools were closed. Women across industries, including the tech world, continue to experience vast gaps in pay, a reality worsened by the coronavirus pandemic, described Delana Brand, VP, People Experience and Head of Inclusion and Diversity at Twitter. We believe that pay equity is critical to building diverse and inclusive workplaces and a better, more equitable world. Signing on to this pledge is an extension of our commitment to pay equity across the board at Twitter. The pledge is intended to supplement the regulations already in place in California, and the state already has some of the most stringent equal pay laws on the books. As of 2021, California employers must report salary information to the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing. And California's Fair Pay Act prohibits unequal rates of pay for employees of the opposite sex who perform substantially similar work. Daisy Vieira, spokesperson for the First Partners Office, says, the Equal Pay Pledge is an innovative campaign designed to spur actions that we know have been shown to reduce the pay gap. Developed 2 years ago, the pledge is consistent with California law and promotes additional best practices to increase equity in the workplace. One weakness of current pay equity laws is the lack of education. If employees don't fully understand their rights, then the laws can go unenforced. To rectify this issue, Newsom and CCSWG partnered with the California Labor Commissioner's Office to promote the Workplace Rights Ambassador Program, WRAP, to train California workers to be sure they understand their rights under California's equal pay laws. These trainings give women tools and resources to ensure that they can advocate for themselves in the workplace and know how to take action if they believe their rights are being violated, and streamline women's ability to enroll in key benefits and take advantage of legal protections designed to support them, according to a press release issued today. All women have a right to be valued, seen as equals, and paid equally, said Newsom. As the pandemic threatens to undo nearly 3 decades of progress for women, now is the perfect time for companies to support women workers and build equity in the workplace. I applaud the companies who have signed the pledge to help California transform the strongest equal pay laws in the nation into the smallest pay gap in the nation. Wonderful. That's really good for California women. Really good news. We can have equal pay if we want it. So next we're going to look at Biden and soccer star Megan Rapinoe push for equal pay as the pandemic hits women harder. Excuse me.
Professional athlete, and I've helped, along with all of my teammates virtually here today, one teammate literally here today, win 4 World Cup championships and 4 Olympic gold medals for the United States. And despite those wins, I've been
This is by Andrea Shalal for Yahoo News. President Joe Biden will host groundbreaking members of the U.S. women's national soccer team at the White House on Wednesday as part of his push to secure better pay for American women who earn 82 cents on average for every dollar earned by men. Today is Equal Pay Day, which marks how much longer into a new year U.S. women on average must work to earn what the average man earned the previous year. The pay gap is far greater when calculated for Black women who earn 63 cents on the dollar and Latino women who earn just 55 cents, and the gap likely widened during the coronavirus pandemic, experts say. Equal pay became a huge rallying cry for the soccer squad that won the Women's World Cup for a second consecutive time in 2019, and the team's fans after Megan Rapinoe and her teammates sued U.S. Soccer, alleging gender discrimination. The coronavirus pandemic and its economic fallout exacerbated longstanding disparities in pay between men and women, triggering what Vice President Kamala Harris has called a national emergency for women. U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi said that the challenges of the past year had inflicted a further devastating toll on American women and vowed to push through legislation to end the gender wage gap and strengthen women's economic security. Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package includes measures aimed at getting the millions of women forced during the pandemic back to work. His next legislative push, valued at some $3 trillion, will go further by expanding childcare infrastructure and creating jobs, administration officials say. Vice President Kamala Harris told women's advocacy groups, I'm sorry, the dog opened the door. Let me shut it. Out. Okay. Vice President Kamala Harris told women's advocacy groups during a virtual meeting that change was overdue. It was time to deal with the fact that the current federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour added up to an annual salary of $15,000, and 1 in 3 of those workers was a woman of color, she said. We should require the system itself to be transparent. We have to hold employers accountable. We have to hold corporations accountable, she said. Rapinoe and teammate Margaret Pearce did join Biden at the White House, along with other soccer players who will join the event virtually, administration officials said. Rapinoe told the House Committee on Oversight and Reform the World Cup winners had exceeded the accomplishments of their male counterparts, but received inadequate compensation and playing conditions. There are heroines because they champion this issue for all women, said Jennifer Klein, co-chair of the newly established White House Gender Policy Council. This is really true in literally every country in the world. Women are paid less. The team reached a settlement in December with U.S. Soccer on certain working conditions, including team travel and accommodations, but is still fighting in the courts to achieve equal pay to the men's soccer team. Here we go. You want full stadiums? We filled them. Rapinoe testifies to Congress on equal pay. Megan Rapinoe has taken her fight for equal pay to Congress as she testified on Wednesday in front of a committee examining the economic harm caused by longstanding gender inequalities, particularly for women of color. The Olympic and World Cup champion testified at a hearing by the House Committee on Oversight and Reform. In her opening statement, the soccer star told the committee that, "I am here today because I know firsthand that this is true. We are told in this country that if you just work hard and continue to achieve, you will be rewarded fairly. It's the promise of the American dream, but that promise has not been for everyone." The United States women's national team has won 4 World Cup championships and 4 Olympic gold medals on behalf of our country. We have filled stadiums, broken viewing records, sold out jerseys, all popular metrics by which we are judged. Yet despite all of this, we are still paid less than men. For each trophy, of which there are many, each win, each tie, each time we play, less. Rapinoe said she did not understand why pay inequality was still a problem in U.S. soccer despite the U.S. women's success. "I feel like, honestly, we've done everything," she said. "You want stadiums filled? We filled them. You want role models for your kids, for your boys and your girls and your little trans kids? We have that. You want us to be respectful? You want us to perform on the world stage?" In December, the U.S. women's national team reached an agreement with the U.S. Soccer Federation over equal work conditions with their male counterparts. The players were seeking the same conditions as the U.S. men's team in areas such as travel, hotel accommodation, the right to play on grass rather than artificial turf, and staffing. However, the U.S. women's team still do not have equal pay with the men's team after a federal judge surprisingly threw out their case in May 2020. The team have appealed the decision and are seeking millions of dollars in back pay from U.S. Soccer. Last week, there was an outcry at the NCAA tournament, the crown jewel of U.S. college basketball, after photos showed the far inferior gym equipment provided to female players compared to their male counterparts. Rapinoe touched on the subject during Wednesday's hearings. "With the lack of proper investment, we don't know the real potential of women's sports," she said. "What we know is how successful women's sports have been in the face of discrimination, in the face of a lack of investment in every level in comparison to men." The midfielder also said she supported the rights of trans athletes. Dozens of bills in the U.S. seek to ban trans athletes from certain youth sports. "As a member of the LGBTQ community, I firmly stand with the trans family," said Rapinoe. "As someone who has played sports with someone who is trans, I can assure you all is well. Nothing is spontaneously combusting." Rapinoe visited the White House later on Wednesday for an event with Joe and Jill Biden, marking Equal Pay Day. Well, I can tell you that in all of my years working, I never received the full pay that men did. It's not fair to pay women less, especially when we are mothers. Mothers should be paid to mother. If we want women to stay home and take care of our children, why don't we pay them to do it? How hard is that? Do you know that most women, if they have children, women are definitely responsible for housekeeping, mainly cooking, cleaning, taking care of the children, bathing, reading, putting them to sleep, getting them up in the morning, making their lunches and their breakfast. Women do this work for the majority. Now, men are coming along and starting to do more of housework and more family raising. So all that's left is for men to understand that women need equal pay. And on that note, I'm going to go. Thank you for listening today. I really appreciate everyone who's been listening and watching. You are who helps make this possible. Okay. Thank you for watching. The Future is Socialist. I'm your host, Emberly McCullough, and I'll see you back again tomorrow at 4:00 Pacific Standard Time. Thank you.